You okay? Not particularly, but if you mean physically, then well enough. I'm not a smear on the ground, and... He paused, taking a moment to evaluate himself, feeling for any injuries. Nothing broken either. How about you? Pen winced slightly as she shifted her weight. A dull ache radiated from her back, and her arms bore scrapes and cuts from the gravel. All things considered, better than I expected, she replied, forcing a smile despite the discomfort. As she scanned the area around them, the sharp outlines of the jagged rock formation towered over them. It stood like a sentinel in the middle of a densely forested area, where tall, thin pine trees stretched towards the sky. Pen recognized the trees, though they were taller and slimmer than any she had seen on Earth, their needles swaying gently in the breeze. A human colony. And it's an established one at that, she remarked, a hint of excitement in her voice. How can you tell? Gareth asked, brow furrowing in confusion. Well, for one, there are pine trees. We tend to bring our ecosystems with us when we settle new places, for better or worse. Beyond that, she said, removing her breather to inhale sharply, I can breathe without issue. Gareth huffed, scrambling over her lap as she took off her mask. That was incredibly reckless, he exclaimed, concern lacing his tone. I'm fine, she assured him, waving her hand dismissively. What if the air was toxic? He shot back, his voice rising with anxiety. Then they wouldn't have planted a pine forest here. And as much as I enjoy admiring the scenery, we should get moving, so... She glanced down, realizing he was still awkwardly perched in her lap. Oh, right, he muttered, quickly climbing off her and regaining his footing. The Terran trees towered even above Pen, casting long shadows in the fading light. Gareth felt a pang of insecurity, the towering trees making Pen seem small in comparison, which only intensified his own feelings of insignificance. He tried to peer beyond the thick foliage, but the dense underbrush obscured his view, trapping them in a green maze. Pen straightened herself and cracked her neck, shaking off the lingering tension. All right, best we get moving. This trek isn't going to get any shorter. Moving? Where? How? Gareth asked, bewildered. East, towards the sun. We'll go on foot unless you've got some secret stash of transportation in your pockets, she replied, a hint of playful sarcasm in her tone. East? Just like that? Gareth said, scratching his head in disbelief. Yeah, while we were falling, I was paying attention. The ship went that way, so I figured east was our best bet, she explained, gesturing broadly in that direction. We were just blown out the back of the nebula, fell out of the sky, and now we're lost in the wilderness with who knows what out there. And you're acting like we're on a casual hike. Just head east, huh? Gareth exclaimed, exasperated. Let's break it down, Penn said, her tone steady. The ship didn't explode. The damage was limited to the cargo bay. Tunny T is a skilled pilot. Yes, we were losing altitude, but it probably made an emergency landing somewhere to the east. So, we head east and find them. What if they're hurt? Gareth asked, his voice dropping as worry crept in. Then we head east and help them, Penn replied, her determination shining through. What if? What if doesn't help us right now, Gareth? She interrupted, trying to keep the conversation grounded. They don't even know if we're alive, he pointed out softly, his earlier bravado fading. Do you really think they'd leave without checking? Penn asked, raising an eyebrow. Well, no. But you act like, how are you not freaking out? Would freaking out help us? She countered. No. Exactly. Honestly, we're better off than we could be. We know which direction they went. We're not stranded on some barren rock. We have trees and breathable air, which works for me. That means there's likely civilization nearby. Gareth fidgeted with his frills, but her confidence began to ease his anxiety. The weight of their predicament still lingered, but her unwavering belief that they would find a way calmed his racing heart. All right, I guess, he finally said, his resolve slowly building. Hey, look at me, Penn insisted, drawing his gaze to her. We're good. I've got us. Her expression was solid, unyielding like granite, and Gareth found strength in her certainty. He had seen her navigate worse situations before. Somehow, this didn't seem like one she couldn't handle. All right, he nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. Let's get moving. You up for it? Penn asked, her tone both encouraging and playful. Yeah, I'm good for a while, Gareth replied, taking a deep breath. The two of them set off in the direction of the ship, with Penn taking the lead at a measured pace. To her surprise, Gareth kept up without complaint, his long legs matching her strides. After about 10 minutes, however, Penn noticed he was beginning to lag, his skin color shifting slightly. Hold on. Penn. I'm getting too hot. My muscles are tiring out, Gareth admitted, his voice strained. All right, but we'll need to pick up the pace soon, Penn replied, trying to sound encouraging. We've been jogging for a good while already. He protested, wiping sweat from his brow. It's been 10 minutes, Gareth. Exactly. He huffed, his breath coming in labored gasps. Gareth, we've got a long way to go. We've barely started, Penn urged, trying to maintain the momentum. What do you mean? He asked, glancing around as if searching for a sign of their destination. Without looking for a place to rest, Gareth suddenly dropped to the ground, crossing his legs in defeat. Judging by the light, We have a few hours of daylight left. I was hoping to keep moving until sunset and then find a spot to rest, Penn explained, glancing up at the sky, which was slowly shifting from bright blue to a soft orange. Hours? Gareth asked, incredulous. Is that not going to work? Penn asked, a hint of concern creeping into her voice. Absolutely not. I'd collapse after another 10 minutes at this pace if I didn't pass out from heat exhaustion first, he groaned, resting his head against a tree trunk. That would be counterproductive, Penn said, crossing her arms as she assessed his condition. He was still breathing hard, the rhythmic hiss of his breather loud in the stillness of the forest. His skin color was gradually returning to normal, but Penn could tell he was struggling. All right, you're feeling better now? She asked, kneeling beside him. Yeah, he replied, although he didn't seem convinced. Penn thought for a moment, weighing their options. Stopping every 10 minutes wasn't sustainable. She glanced down at him and then bit her lip. Oh no, that's not a good look. What are you thinking? Gareth asked, raising an eyebrow. You think you can hold on better this time? Probably easier than when we were falling out of the sky? Penn asked, an impish grin forming on her lips. Are you sure? I don't want to slow you down, Gareth replied hesitantly. Trust me, you weigh about as much as a couple of grapes. Definitely lighter than my gear, so it's really no trouble, she assured him, her playful tone softening the gravity of their situation. Okay then. Just don't overdo it, all right? He said, still cautious. Penn crouched down and turned around so Gareth could climb onto her back. It felt awkward at first, but he managed to wrap his primary arms around her neck and secure his legs around her waist. You're like a little backpack, she teased, attempting to lighten the mood. Pretty sure I should find that insulting, but given you're carrying me, I'll let it slide. Gareth replied, a hint of a smile breaking through his earlier tension. Don't thank me yet. I'm not sure how comfortable a ride this'll be for you. It might get bumpy, she warned, preparing herself for the added weight. With that, Penn stood and took off at a steady jogging pace. Gareth clung tightly to her as she skillfully navigated through the trees, her agility surprising him. An hour passed, then another. Gareth could hardly believe it. Penn's pace remained steady, her breathing calm and even. She slowed at points to navigate tricky terrain, but she never fully stopped. Gareth began to think his grip would give out before she would tire. Around the third hour, the sun began to dip low on the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched across the forest floor. The sky transformed into a canvas of burning oranges and deep purples, signaling the end of the day. To his surprise, Penn suddenly came to a stop, breaking the rhythm he had grown accustomed to. Wah, he began, but she quickly raised a hand to silence him. Shoo. Listen, Pen urged, her eyes focused intently on the sounds around them. Gareth strained to hear, attempting to filter through the rustling leaves and chirping insects. Then he caught it, the faint sound of running water in the distance. "A river," Pen said, a note of relief in her voice as she resumed her pace, heading towards the sound. They soon arrived at a slow-moving river where the trees bowed over the water, their branches creating a natural canopy. The gentle rush of the water filled the air, providing a soothing backdrop to the chaotic day they had endured. Pen knelt beside the river and scooped up some water in her hands, but Gareth quickly smacked her hand away. "Stop it! Let me test it before you poison yourself," he said, a mix of concern and urgency in his tone. "It's fine," Pen started, but Gareth was already shaking his head. "Please?" Pen sighed, rolling her eyes but relenting. "All right, go ahead." Gareth pulled out a small tab from his belt, dipped it into the water, and plugged it into a device on his wrist. After a moment of anticipation, the screen lit up with a readout, revealing the water's quality. 0.2% salt content, low mineral levels, and some single-celled organisms. He glanced up at her, his expression stern. "It's clean enough. I don't have a purifier, so I'm not letting either of us risk parasites," he stated firmly, crossing his arms as if daring her to argue. "Fair enough," she conceded, tilting her head slightly. "But can you help me get some? We need to hydrate. Do you have something that can hold water and withstand heat?" Gareth asked, looking thoughtful. "My helmet's detachable," she said, detaching it and holding it out. "Hold still," Gareth instructed, and she did as he asked. "Wait," but before he could finish his thought, Pen snapped the helmet off his suit with a quick twist. "H. A little warning next time," he huffed, rubbing the back of his neck, where the helmet had once rested. "Relax, I'm going to boil the water," she said nonchalantly, her confidence radiating like the setting sun. Gareth looked at her incredulously. "Boil? Here? Now?" "Of course. If this is the kind of place that can support trees, it probably has the right conditions for fire too," she reassured him. As Pen set about finding dry twigs and branches, Gareth marveled at her determination. She moved with purpose, her focus unwavering as she gathered materials. "All right, let's see if I can do this," she murmured to herself, kneeling by the riverbank. Gareth watched as she started a small fire using a few rocks to create a makeshift pit. The flames flickered to life, casting warm light over the dimming landscape. Pen poured the water from the helmet into the fire, steam rising as the heat enveloped the area. "This should do the trick," she said with a satisfied grin. Gareth let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "All right, Pen. Just remember, we still have to find our crew." "Absolutely. We will," she affirmed, determination shining in her eyes. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the forest, the two of them sat beside the fire, the smell of smoke mixing with the fresh scent of pine. They knew their journey was just beginning, but together they felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.